Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the food and exercise rules that you need to drop because they are standing in the way of your progress and living in the body of your dreams. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Elevate, elevate, hey, hey, hey. You wanted to talk about subscriptions?
Yeah. Can we just talk about how it's bullshit that everything is moving to a subscription model? So we went and test drove some cars yesterday after dinner. And so we were talking to the guy and Michael was asking whatever questions Michael asked because I know nothing about cars. And my big things for a car is I need to be able to have air conditioning vents in the back, like not have it come from the front. Yes. I want a remote start, and I would like heated and cooled seats if that's possible. That's not a deal breaker, but it would be nice. So we're driving in the car and the dealership. So Michael's like,
what dealership did you go to?
A Toyota one off Frank Lloyd, right? Like
I know the GM there. So
I just need to test drive it and then say if I like this car or not. And then Michael does what he does. Because
I know the GM there.
Okay. Well,
I used to do marketing for automotive dealerships, and that was one of my accounts.
I should tell him that because I think he has to get it in Texas though because he's going to get under his business.
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't. Again. Not my department in the relationship. So we're test driving and Michael's like, is there no navigation on the screen? And like, where is it? And the guy's like, oh no, navigation is now a subscription thing. And we're like, what? Like, okay. And then apparently, which makes sense because most phones connect now to the cars. And so the phone has the navigation anyway. Okay, fine. But I learned that there's subscription heated seats. So you don't just get heated seats, like you have to pay for them. And then I learned there's subscription automatic start. So you pay like $8 to $9 a month now to have automatic start. And I was like, God, that is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Everything's a subscription now.
I know.
You know, I don't get it. But yeah, that's the new thing is like they'll just add it on from wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And now you have the thing in the car rather than buying like different packages. You just buy different subscriptions. So we could add whatever we want to our car. And yeah.
Which is so silly because I'm like, if you're paying X amount for a car, like I feel like those things should just be there.
That's why you get a Tesla.
I know, but I don't want a Tesla and Michael doesn't like the interiors of Tesla. He doesn't like this, I don't know, something about it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, my back itches. I darkened my hair.
I know. Didn't you do that last week? Did you get darker?
We didn't talk about it.
I know. How was it?
Let's talk about everything that happens in our lives. Okay. I like it darker. It's really dirty right now. So I put it in like this half up situation that you can't really tell on camera. I really enjoy it. I should have gone dark a long time ago. And my extensions. So for y'all out there who are an extension girly, they have this new type of extension that's much thinner. The weft is really thin. It's like thinner, like less than like a nail bed. Because the one that I had before was like a thumbnail bed. So you had this like thick thing here. These are teeny tiny. They're like, I don't even know, like less than the point of my pin.
Oh my
They're awesome. So they can flip up and down easily. So just a little note, hair note.
So why do you like
it? Tisk me?
No, I'm tisking.
I just think it's good. Yeah, I just think it looks nice and it looks nice in my eyes. I have dark eyes. A guy once asked me if I had black pupils. I was like, that's not a thing. I'm not a witch.
Okay.
But he's like, they're just so dark. I'm like, thank you. And it was also weird because I was walking up to his table to serve him. And he goes, yeah, this is the girl I was talking about. Her eyes are really dark. They look black. And I was like,
okay.
All right.
Odd.
What can I get you to drink?
Okay, moving on. I will not be having sex with you then.
Yeah. Nope. Sorry, dude. I had something.
Change the color of your hair depending on the season?
Yes, that's why it's dark.
Oh, there we go.
I got an aura reading.
Yes. How was that?
And it was so spot on. Mm-hmm. It was just like a mini aura reading at this event. I went to support my girlfriend, Jordan. Her and her colleague will be on the podcast when Amanda is away for a special episode on hormones and fertility, of course, everything we talk about. But she was doing cupping and some acupuncture. And then next to her was this aura reading. And you just sit there and the girl just kind of like takes in your aura. And she said the following things. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you already heard. But she said, you have a lot of like guides around you. You seem to be really supported by like your mentors and your ancestors. And I have 2 mentors who passed away. Did I talk about this already on here? No, because it was Wednesday, I think. Wednesday or Thursday. Anyway, so I had my mentor growing up, Johnetta Williams. She passed away 7 years ago because it was right before I got married. I was very sad. I was wondering why she didn't text me back when I was like, I got engaged. She was not there. Yeah. And then my mentor, Christy Murphy, she passed away about 2 years after that. And I have Christy's picture in my home. I have the last, Johnetta brought me this beautiful necklace. She has a home in Jamaica and she brought me this beautiful necklace. I have them with me all the time. And I always hear their voice in my head. It's crazy. I know people are like, what? Psycho? It's true. And she said, you don't see them, you hear them all the time. And I was like, huh. And then she said, okay, let me get into your aura. She goes, it's weird because it's not a color. And like, I'm going to say it's like honey, but not the color honey. She goes, it's just like warm and like comforting. She said, you get deep with people on a level that's intense, but not in a bad way. She goes, but it's interesting because nobody gets that deep with you, but a few people in your life. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I'm a therapist. She goes, oh, yep, that would make sense. I said, but I'm a really good one. So there's a difference. And then she said, you've got some situation where someone's going to like, something's ending, like a relationship is ending and not like your marriage, but there's a relationship ending. And it made me think of a friend. And it also made me think of my dog, right? Because she's been sick. She's not sick, guys. She's not in pain at all, actually. Her spine is going. So then she said, but the interesting thing is it's either someone new is going to come, something new, a new relationship will come, or that relationship will meet again and it will be better. Now, here's the funny thing that happened. I had a friendship kind of end. My best friend, like, met her before I met Adrienne, not Melissa. Okay. Melissa is my sister. I didn't even consider her my friend at this point because she goes to my parents' house more than me. And my parents feed her and her boyfriend, Randy. Have you met Melissa and Randy? You have.
I like them.
They're the best.
Melissa's the best. Very supportive of us on her social medias as well. So
she is. And you guys are so fucking similar. Crazy. Like, she's not only child. And so
Jordan
not Melissa
fucked me over this weekend with her comment. I'll tell you. Jordan fucked me over this weekend with one of her comments about being an only child.
Oh, about the only child. Like I would not have. I would not have one kid. And like, wait, no,
we are. She's like, no, I don't want them fucked up like me. I'm like, God damn it.
Like, yeah. Michael's like, see? Yeah. So, this was maybe 4 years ago, and it just kind of abruptly ended in a weird way.
This friendship that you're talking about.
This friendship.
Yeah.
Let me see. When was this? I'm looking at our last text. It was in September 26, 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was her birthday yesterday. And I think about her a lot because she would always be the person that I'd contact. Like when my dad caught cancer, she was the first person I wanted to call.
Yeah.
And other than like Adrienne, I texted her happy birthday yesterday. I said, happy birthday. I hope you and the girls are doing well because she has 2 daughters. And she responded.
Whoa.
And now we're going to go for a walk and a coffee on Saturday.
Whoa.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. There was no like bad blood. It was more of what happened.
Yeah.
Like
a situation.
Yeah. She's like, we just grew apart. I was like, that's news to me. I didn't think we were going, because she has a busy life. She's like a badass business owner. She's got 2 kids. She was in this relationship that I kind of was not
a fan of,
100 about, and she knew it. So like that caused some tension, but like, I still love her, you know, like I'm gonna support her. And so it wasn't like, it was like, fuck her, you know, any of that. But it was just like, I don't know what happened. Like anyone asked what happened, I'm like, I don't know. You may know more than I do, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy to do that. And so when she said a new relationship comes in or you meet a relationship again, I was like, oh, maybe it's that. So it was really cool. And I think I'm going to get the whole thing. It's like $350.
I would gladly pay for that.
Yeah.
We
should go together.
I'll do it.
Yes.
Okay. We'll do it.
Maybe
a potty retreat.
Yes. And then we will podcast while we're doing
it. We should have her on the podcast because I have questions about like how you come into that field. Like if you can tell someone, like there's a lot of questions that I have for those types of people. Now I have questions for you. Did you record the reading?
I didn't.
Okay. So lesson learned, you got to record them.
Yeah.
And why I say that is because I've had my psychic reading. I had my, what did she do?
Other life reading.
Energy clearing. And then I had my past life regressions.
Yes.
And when you record it and then re-listen, you're like, whoa. Like,
yeah,
it's like you're watching a movie or rather listening to a movie that you're like, I don't even remember that part. And so highly recommend that you record it. And I always ask, you know, do you mind if I record? And they always go, oh, yes, you should. And so
Let's have her on and then she'll do the readings for us.
Yes. Can she do, well, that's a question. Can she do readings through the like screen or does it have to be in person?
We can just bring the stuff.
That's true. We could just bring stuff.
Yeah. So, or we can wear our microphones. Yeah. And then just put it on my phone.
Yeah. We should.
It was cool. I was like, awesome. Okay, I'm into this.
Yes.
Like you're pretty spot on here. Yes. So thank you.
I recommend. Even if someone's like on the fence or they're like, oh, that's woo woo or no, like it goes against my religious practices. It's still very interesting because there's always something where you're like, okay, that was weird.
Like well, tell them about your past life.
My past life regression. Oh my God, that rocked my world. So this lady,
my world a little bit too.
Yeah,
you told me about it.
Like there was, so I think what was it, like 7 to 9 lives? I don't remember the exact number. So this lady comes over to my house and she did my energy healing clearing before, like several years ago. And then I was like, oh, I think I just want, because my mom had done a past life regression with her too. And that was very interesting. And so I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do that. So she comes over and she's different, you know, it's a different field they live in. And she comes over, sets up the bed that you go and lay on, which is essentially just like a lawn chair. And you sit there and then she like brings you back through years. And so it was interesting because so for me, mine was very visual and I just saw different doors and each door had a different light. And so I would be like, let's go through the pink door. Let's go through the green door. Let's go through this door. And I didn't tell her anything about what I wanted to learn because she asked like, is there something that you want to explore? I said, I just want to see where this goes. Like I have no expectations, just want to see. I was completely sober too because I thought about that as well. And I was like, no, I want to do this sober and just make sure. So I, the whole time was bawling and like, no idea why, just crying. And in each life, except for one of them, maybe 2, one for sure, maybe 2, Michael was in them. And that was weird. Where
soulmate.
I know. I was like, oh my God, you are my soulmate.
Damn it.
Fine. So like one of them, it was really interesting. So one of them, we were together, like we were like seeing each other, and we were living in like almost like Sweden or somewhere over there. And it was definitely like back in the day. It was not modern day times. And that's the interesting thing, is like you literally feel like you're living in that time
Oh, wow.
of life. Yeah, like you're literally in it. And you can see the things, and everything like comes naturally. So like, for example, in the Sweden Danish kind of town, he lived in another town. We would meet up secretly, and he wanted to get married, but I didn't want to get married because at the time that was like, if you get married, that you just become a wife. Like there is nothing else after that. And so we ended up separating because he wanted him married and kids, and I didn't. And then later it like pans to me being older, and I'm crying and upset, and just kind of like, not like obsessively crying, but just kind of like, damn, because then I realized in my older life that Michael probably would have let me be like that strong, independent woman in that era, and like still did the things. And I missed that opportunity with him. So that was a sad thing. And then there was another time where this one was really dark. So yeah, we're going to crack this shell open, everybody.
Trigger warning. We're going to talk about suicide.
Yes. So there was another.
So please skip this if you do not want to hear this.
Yes. It'll probably take me about 3 minutes to explain. So I was still living in Amarillo, and I was drinking and taking pills secretly every night, and getting worse and worse, and really depressed. And then I ended up accidentally, like I didn't intend to kill myself, but I ended up overdosing. And so what I would do is watch Michael and my family almost like from a viewing box. So thinking of like Grey's Anatomy when they're watching the surgery from upstairs. And so I would torture myself and punish myself by watching them be so sad. And so that was like heartbreaking, because I was like, oh my God. So yeah, so that wasn't good. And then there was another one where like, I don't know. There was the other one where I was cheating on my husband with him.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was when I was in the frontier. So like, I know. See, it's so weird. And that's so crazy. Like, just the Amarillo one was like modern day, and then I had the Danish one, and then the frontier one. Like, I had an abusive husband with 2 kids, and then there was this gentleman that would come, and it was weird because the aura or whatever lady, my guide that was with me physically, she would be like, wait, who's that man? And I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know. Because I would see him, and she'd be like, who's this guy? And I'd be like, I don't know. And she goes, huh. And I goes, that's not my husband. She goes, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, and it's like me and him making out. And it was like, he couldn't have kids, and so he like was like almost like a rancher and would come and go, and we were lovers, but we couldn't be together because I was with this abusive guy. And so it was really interesting.
That's so freaking cool.
I know. Like it was, and I like truly am like, I think those really did happen, because there was it just,
the Amarillo thing has to be like an alternate universe.
That's what, yes, because even she said that. She's like, this is odd. Like, this is not like another world. This is just sometimes she explained it like sometimes you can live the same reality, but this is the other side of it. So like, yes, essentially the alternate universe.
Which for the listeners, there was a point where Amanda was not happy in Amarillo, and she decided to leave.
Yes.
And she was getting depressed. So that was that reality.
Yeah. So that's for the listeners, that was a time where my exercise and nutrition behaviors were not healthy. I thought they were healthy, but they were not. And that was my outlet. So when I have clients who talk about that, or who do those behaviors, and a funny thing, we'll talk about rules. Like, I had a lot of rules at the time. I had a lot of standards for myself. I had a lot of suppression of emotions, and just anger towards the world, and anger towards my life, and all of that. I never contemplated not continuing my life at that time, but I could see where it could have been that had I maybe stayed.
I want to hear our audience's stories on like this kind of what we'll call it, like supernaturals. Have you had aura readings, psychic readings, like things that were like, holy shit? Email them at What is our email?
Our email is themindsetofmatter@gmail.com.
Not that one. We have one for this podcast.
Oh.
Just email us at themindsetofmatter@gmail.com. We'll figure out the podcast email and maybe put it down here. We do have a
podcast email.
We do. I want to hear you guys' stories or send us a message on Insta at Mindset of Matter Coaching.
Yes, please.
I want to see that Tyler guy.
Who's the Tyler guy?
Tyler Henry. Who does where he sees your people and spirits come to him. He's very popular.
Is he John Edwards? Remember him?
Yes.
My mom used to watch
exactly that.
Oh, Tyler Henry. Yes, I've seen this guy. He is interesting looking.
Yes, he is. But he's so sweet. And he's it is crazy to me. But I know we're going way over intro, but
sorry.
I feel people's pain so
sames.
Extremely, it's extreme. It's vivid in my body. Now I can't see anything, but I just feel people's pain. And obviously I had to do a lot of work on that because I'm what is mine? What is theirs?
Right.
And I guess people call that an empath, but I don't. I'm just very compassionate. So,
well, that was actually this chick that when the first time I met her, she brought that up and she's like, do you know what an empath is? And I was like, no, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And she's like, you need to look into that. And so I did. And I was like, oh my God. That was when I had to, when I was seeing Sean, therapist, of talking to him about clients coming in, because it was they're coming into my home essentially. Yes, it's a garage gym, but they're coming into my home, dumping their feelings and thoughts. And then I'm carrying those into my home. And so I had to come up with a visual of okay, I will take it for this hour. And then, or even for the calls, right? Because so I would see them and then I would have calls and it's okay, I'm still in my fucking home. And I had to put them in a container and close that container and be okay, Christina it's 3:20, her session's done. Container is closed. We will open it back up when it's her time on Wednesday.
Yep. My mentor, Christy, told me, she goes, because I worked in child crimes and I brought all that shit home. She goes, you need a barrier, a boundary. She's like, what if Brooklyn's standing in the room with you and protecting you?
Ooh, yeah.
And so Brookie in my mind would be between me and the kid and just kind of sitting there protecting me from everything. That fucking dog, man.
Well, that's the problem with Lulu, is because when my mom did her past life regression, Lulu was in every single life.
Oh my God. If they tell me that, I'm going to vomit.
That's it.
Okay, we're going to do this, guys. It's going to be so freaking cool.
Yeah, because Lulu was in every single life. And she's like, this dog has been your protector throughout. At one point, she was a horse. I know. And so, so that's why this is hitting hard that Lulu is no longer with us.
Yeah, I want to do the past life, and we definitely going to do aura. We'll do our aura. I'll contact the girl. I want to do it before you have the baby.
Oh yeah, duh.
And then we should do an after you have the baby and see how your aura changes.
Okay. That would be,
and see how my aura changes after you have the baby. Anyhow,
okay.
So today's topic is something that is a part of our reflections. We've had a really good response on our reflection type of style podcast. Yeah. So I thought, hey, let's keep going. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, right? We had a great response to self-sabotage. So those food rules, again, you guys are like, these all kind of sound similar, but I just want to talk about specifics because a lot of this is beyond self-sabotage. It really is cultural.
Yep.
And they're cultural rules and lack of education that people create these rules around. They think, well, if I do this, then obviously I'll see results, but then they don't see results. And so the rules are, just generally distortions, right? They're these beliefs and I'll just say misinformation that people have told us, especially if you're 30s, 40s, we've received these messages. But the beautiful thing about today's age is we are finally tapping into why the obesity crisis continues to exist and coming up with very strong research on what actually works, right? And a lot of it has to do with, again, overdoing it, right? In regards to movement, under eating, high stress, and just not having a structured plan. Whereas if you think even 10 years ago, the CrossFit craze was every day was a different workout. We kill ourselves in the gym. Like a lot, I did it, you did it, a lot of our listeners did it, some of them still do it. And those women now are in the boat of like, I don't understand. I didn't lose any weight. I might have been strong as fuck, which is great, or I could run long or whatever. But the effort they put into it, they didn't get the outcomes that they desired. Right.
Yes.
So we're going to talk specifically about the food and exercise rules. We also have a whole portion of this reflection on self-worth rules, which break down those individually, all or nothing, perfection, all of that. So some of the food rules, first thing we're going to talk about are the rules themselves and explain them. Then we'll go back through and give our reframe. That's okay. You want to do it that way?
Sure.
So the first rule is you let yourself have an extra serving or treat, but only if you work it off. Right? So this is misinformation / distortion.
Yeah.
So the misinformation comes in a few ways. It comes from what our calorie trackers on the treadmill, on our watch say, and people believe that, oh, I went to the F45 class for 45 minutes. It says I burned 850 calories. So I worked off my, cheesecake last night.
Right.
And unfortunately, we'll talk about why that's not true. But also the distortion that you can only eat certain foods if you're going to burn them off, right?
Or like earn them too.
Or earn them back.
Yeah, because you earn the burn to be able to work that treat off.
Right. This is technically, if I'm going to get technical, a form of purging.
Really?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes. Okay. I eat the food to get rid of it. Yeah. Wow. Excessive exercise can be a part of bulimia.
Oh, fuck.
Speaking of doing things online, tell me how that makes you feel, Amanda.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, I used to do this, and so I understand this concept really well. And fortunately, I don't do this anymore. And if I do, it's totally like maybe once in a blue moon, and I would recognize it before. Like, I can't even think of the last time I did it, but I know I used to do this. So the fact that you put it in that term, it's like, holy fuck, like that's a disorder. Yeah.
It is. A lot of these play in the sandbox with eating disorders.
Yes. Which would make sense though, because if you're wanting to work it off, you don't have that extra serving. And especially like for me, it was more so of like eat clean, eat clean, eat clean. And if I burn it off, then it didn't technically happen. And I still ate clean throughout the day. So like there's more justification than just this phrase. Right. So, okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Will be $250. Yeah. No, it definitely is a form of purging. And the second one is a form of, it's a symptom of binge eating, right? Where, or anorexia, any sort of eating disorder. There's that hyper focus on food, where all we think about is food. We're hyper focused on when we're eating it, or we're thinking about like, how it's going to stick to our hips or whatever thing we're thinking. Or oftentimes in true binge eating, we're completely disconnected from eating altogether. So we just put the food in our mouth and don't actually taste it, enjoy it. It's almost like an out-of-body experience.
Well, that's what the example I've talked about this client before, where she was feeling guilty for having chocolates, therefore she shouldn't have chocolates. And she would be like, oh man, I just had like 6 or 8 or 10 or the whole bag. Like I don't need to be having the whole bag. And I'm like, and after talking to her and kind of diving into that, it was more so of like, I'm just not slowing down and enjoying them. And so she was creating a disconnection. And so it's like, why don't you just get out how many chocolates you think you want, slow down and enjoy them. And then she ended up, like, say she would get out 4 chocolates, she would end up only eating like 2 of them at that point.
Right. Well, it's like this weekend. We had brunch and then we went to another place a few hours later, and I was hungry, but they didn't really have a great selection. And even like the salads, I was like, eh. So I got that cheese quesadilla.
Yeah, which was big.
And I had, and I had 2 slices and I gave it to my girlfriend. She ate the rest. Like, you know, it wasn't, I was like, this is good. I'm full. You know, I'm full. I feel good. Good. What else?
As far as examples with that one?
Or no, just the next one.
Yeah. Okay. So when you eat with others, you always compare what you eat compared to others.
Yes.
Yes. So I find this more so with the clients, not so much the ones who eat clean per se, because they're already like on this pedestal of this is what I do. And I would say they look as at a judgmental place, whereas the clients who tend to have less nutrient dense food compare that to others and kind of will judge. Like, so say you and I go out to eat, you do get a salad and I do get the quesadilla. Like, I'm more likely to compare my food than you are to compare yours to me. And it comes from a place of like guilt and shame about their choices, because, oh, if she got the salad, like maybe I should be getting the salad too.
Right.
Like,
or the opposite too.
Yeah.
Like the binge bonds.
Yes.
Right. Well, she's getting the, chicken and waffles. So I'm going to get something bad.
Yes.
Right.
We'll be bad together.
That happens often. Or my husband's getting a drink, so I'm going to get a drink. Or I've heard my clients say, well, my boss gets a drink every time we go out. I'm like,
great.
Is your boss in the best health of his life? No, he's got a big old beer belly. Okay. Well, there we go.
Cute.
Another one is we do not eat after a certain time of the day. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I eat my creamy at like 7 and I go to bed at 8:30.
Like, I would say, this is one where it gets a little, like, I would say there's more of a gray zone with this, right? So you could say, oh man, like I don't eat past 8 because if I go to bed at 8:30, like I just don't feel good. Like that's a thing.
Right.
But to set a rule of like, no, I do not eat past 7. So if I haven't had dinner by 7, I'm not eating. That is where this rule restriction issue comes in.
Well, and I remember there being this weird research on like, if you don't if you eat carbs after like 2 hours before bedtime, that's how you get fat. Right. No, actually, when you're asleep, you burn the most energy because you're recovering. It's your little workhorse, your little Oompa Loompas are in there like Oompa Loompa, like, doing their thing, recovering your body from the day that you've just had.
Right.
And like, it's not to say like, again, if you don't feel good, if you get heartburn. Michael told me you're having heartburn, by the way.
You know what I think it's from? I think it's from this yogurt that I'm having.
Oh.
Because I had some yesterday and it happened and I was like, okay, now I think I know what it is. But I had the yogurt in my smoothie before we started doing this and it didn't happen. So I think if I blend it with stuff, we're playing around.
Gotcha. Anyways, I digress. But there was that idea, and then obviously intermittent fasting, time restricted eating. I have my creamy at 7:00. I wake up at 5:30. Now I do not have, because I have coffee. So I walk, work out, and then I have an iced coffee. And my coffee I get a really delicious creamer. So that has calories in it. And the coffee obviously doesn't, like, it kind of curbs my appetite. That's not why I drink it. So I'm not necessarily hungry first thing in the morning. So I'm actually still in this kind of letting my digestive system chill out zone, because I won't eat until like 8, Yeah. So,
well, this is where I think too, is when you were talking about like that, whatever fitness trend came out or nutrition trend came up, is they were like, don't eat past 6 or 7, whatever it was. But it's like, what if someone has a later schedule in the day? So for example, one of Michael's friends is a realtor and apparently she doesn't have to start work until like 1 or something like that. So she usually wakes up around 9 or 10. So if her days start later, she's probably going to have a later dinner just by default, right? So for her, maybe it's more advantageous to eat dinner at 8:00 and maybe her stop time is 10. But if she goes by this generic rule of like after 7 is bad, then that's not really working for her as an individual. So,
yep, I'm looking at this real quick.
The whatever diet it was. Best, like, and this is where people are like, well, I intermittent fast. And I'm like, well, you're kind of fasting throughout the night. So it's just what it is. And my other challenge would be like for the younger girls, just wait till you get pregnant. Because at one point, you're going to be like, I don't care what time it is. Because so, for example, like right now, I'll have a banana sometimes at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 11 p.m. because you wake up and you're like, I don't feel good. And if I eat a little bit of a banana, it just like makes me feel better.
So here's a study where they had, I'll just read it to you guys real quick. It says, LaChaminat and colleagues, that's the researcher, looked at a short-term effect that restriction of nighttime eating had on calorie consumption, weight trends, and even mood associated with this deprivation. They recruited 29 young fucking men, the only people who do research because they want some money for beer. Just saying. And asked them to avoid consuming calories. Water was okay between 7 and 6 for 2 weeks. During these 2 weeks, the participants recorded every bite they consumed, and their weight, mood, and level of hunger at breakfast were monitored. There was a 1-week break and then 2 more weeks, a control period, where the subjects were monitored as they returned to their usual way of life. Now, what happened? The average weight change was a loss of nearly 1 pound during the 2 weeks of nighttime fasting and a gain of approximately 1.3 pounds during the control period. So you'd be like, see, it works. However, participants avoiding eating between 7 and 6 reduced their daily calorie intake by 238 calories.
Ding, ding, ding.
This helps explain the weight loss. However, interestingly, their intake of fat decreased significantly while protein and carbohydrate decrease was more conservative. This leads one to believe that the subjects were not eating grilled chicken and broccoli late night, but rather their usual late night snacks were much higher in fat.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Boom. Good. Okay. So we already debunked that one. We talked about this in like your family dynamics. I need to clean my plate. Like that is a rule. If the food is in front of me, I have to clean my plate. This will take you beyond your true fullness cues.
Right.
And like these guys, you will be consuming more than your body needs. Because we've got to realize if you're eating over fullness, like we'll call it an 8 out of 10, where 10 is this like, I feel sick place. Like that's more energy than your body needs.
Right.
Like your body is telling you that. So good. The other one too is kind of eating because food is in front of you. I think I see this at parties. Like we were at our friend Sarah's house and what I do is I just make little plates. So I did eat a little like more often. Right. If I just sat down and because she had like a bean dip and then they made pulled pork and I made a little sandwich and had some mac and cheese, but it was all little, Yeah. But I did notice I grabbed like a carrot and put some ranch on it and just eat it because it was there, But
this I see a lot with like think of pool parties, buffet style get-togethers, like where like your football games, that's where it happens.
Oh yeah.
Everybody starts congregating around the food. And so everybody's just standing there eating it instead of being like, let's just take the food, go in the living room.
Good. Talk about food restriction.
The food group restriction. The biggest culprits are usually carbs, sugar, fruit is one that I'm like, okay.
Good. Fat.
Right? Yeah, fat. So it's just saying I'm not going to have X food group without really understanding what is X food group. So, and the one that I hear the most often is, oh, I'm not having carbs anymore. But really when you digest that, it's like, oh no, I really wish to not have processed carbs anymore. But they blanket statement the carbs, but yet then there becomes like, well, like there always is a reason why one of the carbs can be okay. So for example, somebody I know is trying not to have carbs, but they like really like the like little like Mexican kind of like
candy.
Not candy. They're like almost like a biscotti, but for Mexican. culture. And so they like that in the morning. And it's like, okay, but that's a carb and it's processed. So what do we like? Then we're having carbs.
Right.
Or like beans are carbs, tortillas, carbs, broccoli, carb.
Broccoli.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I always like when I find that I'm like, what do you define as a carb? And then they end up going into processed food. I'm like, if we want to reduce processed food, wonderful. But to say we're not going to eat processed food is impossible.
Right.
So that's one thing. Or like sugar, it's again, okay, but now we're at a party on Sunday for football. Most of that stuff probably has sugar. Like the ranch dressing probably has some sugar in it. The pulled pork might be coated in sugar or like a brown sugar or maple glaze or something like that. So how realistic is that when we start breaking it down into the reality of the situation?
Yeah. My client, Rachel, she had a bunch of stomach issues and she went on a cleanse with Coach Liz. And she was like, this is brutal. But it was interesting because she was just not seeing weight loss, even though she was doing everything right. And she cut out gluten, dairy, and sugar for 2 weeks. And her body just went shook.
See?
Yeah. But I don't mean to say that to glorify it. It was terrible for her. Yeah. And she realized she probably has a gluten allergy. So that's why she was holding on to a lot of stuff there. You eat out of social pressure, not when you're hungry. So I think about, my clients are always like, well, we're doing tapas with friends. And I'm like, or my one client said, well, there's a potluck at work. I'm like, well, why can't you bring your own food?
Also, ew.
You're not a big potluck girl?
I'm a potluck girl, but at work, it's usually like not food, right? It's usually like,
well, it's like, what does that person's kitchen look like?
Right.
So, what if they have like rat droppings?
Well, I've got one of my clients, she was talking about this of like because kids, right? So you go to the kid's birthday party and she always feels like she has to have some of the cake or the dessert, especially if they made it themselves, because she likes to make it herself. Therefore, she knows the effort that she puts in it. And so she wants other people to like feel that gratitude that she does. And I was like, yeah. But what if, like, say it's a chocolate cake? I was like, what if you don't like the chocolate cake? She goes, I know, I'll just eat it. And I'm like, okay, so we strategize like alternatives that she can do in that situation, because it's your own, almost like your own insecurity that comes up is one of the reasons, or people are people pleasing, and or it's people like telling you like, oh, come on, just have a bite, just have a bite, just have a bite. And that's hard too.
Yeah. And, I take this from Sal to Stefano. It's not, I can't have a bite. It's like, I don't want it.
I don't want it. Yeah.
Like yesterday, there was they brought the everything bundt cakes, the individual ones. Yes. And I was like, I don't even like those. And nobody was like, eat this. They had the little Costco chocolate chip cookies and I had one.
Great. That's great. So like at my work, they're like trying to do a baby shower. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, no. And so they were like, the other day, what kind of bundt cake do you like? I'm like, I don't like bundt cake. Like, if y'all want to get a bundt cake for yourself, get it. But I like, don't get one on my behalf.
Leave me out loud.
I know. That's what I keep telling him. Go ahead.
Okay. I realize this list is very long, but keep going.
We're almost to the exercise, people.
Yes. Here's a big one. You eat clean on the weekdays and then reward yourself on the weekends. Yes. Right?
Yes.
So I did so good all week. I'm going to reward myself. Like you're rewarding yourself for keeping yourself alive.
Right.
And choosing non-processed foods to do that, nourishing foods. This will keep you incredible. Like, again, we said this before, people really think, well, it's 4 days and it's maybe it's 5 days, maybe it's even Sunday, but there's no way these 2 days are going to, not help me lose weight if I eat over. Like, they're not going to take me out of my calorie deficit or my diet.
They will.
Yes. Yes, they will. And that is why you're not seeing results, right?
So. Well, and then that goes into the binge restrict cycle. So that's awesome because that I would say is another form of that. So I eat clean. So there's my restrict, and then I binge, I reward myself on the weekends. Right. And that's over a week. That could also be throughout the day. It could also be throughout the month. So that's something.
Well, here's the thing, guys. If you're used to binging on that food, what you're not used to doing is restricting that food. So your body's always going to go back to the familiar. That's what our body does. I just did that post. People loved it. It was like saved several times.
Good.
A binge is not a failure. A binge is a familiar.
Yeah.
Know the difference. And so rather than restricting the food because you don't have the experience, it's not familiar to restrict it, why don't we just slowly bring it down into a portion that better serves you, right? Yes. So I know we said we'd come back to these, but I'm going to jump ahead because I can't help myself.
Go for it.
The other thing, and Amanda says this all the time, you're always on a diet, or you think you're always on a diet.
Yeah.
Like you said that. I was like, that's true. Some people think I've been dieting for 20 years. Well, have you? Yeah. Because you've gained 20 pounds. So technically, I mean, we are, okay, so let me clarify. A diet is what you eat. Like you could be at maintenance and that's your diet, right? It's the type of food you eat, but we've used it as like a calorie deficit. Right. People think they're always in a calorie deficit, and I don't understand why I'm losing weight. Well, it's like, because you're not.
Yes. You're just mentally think you are. The wine at night, Judy, doesn't count as a meal.
So. No. We already said that one. I think I did it. Oh, this one is a little bit different, but I had a good meeting today, so I deserve the wine at night. Yeah. Or I had a hard, bad meeting, so I deserve to get a crumble cookie. Mm-hmm. I love that for me. I'll be like, crumble has all 4 flavors. I told you guys I do have a rule around ordering crumble. I have to want all 4 flavors because then I eat it over the course of like 4 days with Mark. So we split it up. But there's a little bit of my like, hey, they have all 4 flavors, so I'm going to order. I don't do it all the time. And the last one, you always eat during wise situation. I think of parents in this one, right? Or we think of, okay, so for example, our NFL, our yearly opening day, NFL Sunday, they have this breakfast buffet and it's so good. And I used to work at this bar, so I know how well prepared it is. And I will always eat one of those breakfast burritos because they're delicious. Yeah, they're so good. And a piece of pizza for breakfast.
Hell yeah.
And that's what I eat. But then maybe the next thing I order is like a veggie basket, or a salad, but it is a situation that I have the food is tied to the whole experience. Mm-hmm. And so that'd be like the fair is happening right now. So people go to the fair and they're like, I have to have the deep fried Oreos at the fair. It's like, I get it. Obviously I just said I do it, but I will say that I used to get a whole plate of food from the buffet, but now I just get those 2 things. Yeah. But like, sure, get the deep fried Oreo, but you don't have to eat the whole thing. You can have it and share it with your family and so on. So yeah. Anything else that we don't have in here? Food rules wise?
No, you covered them pretty well.
Perfect. Why don't you cover exercise rules?
Okay. Exercise rules. Okay. Well, do we want to go back and reframe the food rules, or you want to go through all the rules and then go back and reframe?
Let's go back. Let's do it. So yes. So the thing we already said, like you're not working off your food. Your exercise only accounts for about 5 to 10% of the energy you burn in a day. Uh-huh. So while your watch might say 800 calories, your body will respond by reducing the amount of energy you burn that day because maybe you did burn 800 calories. But if you don't have the energy to make up for the energy lost, it will actually slow down your not slow down your metabolism, but it will conserve your energy for that day, which is technically slowing down your metabolism. It doesn't happen that quickly, but if you do that all the time, then you're actually eating in a surplus, right? Thinking you've burned off the food, but you didn't because exercise doesn't work that way. Plus, it also doesn't target the fucking donut.
I think that was one of the best things that came to me too. It was like, wait a second, this actually doesn't go straight to the donut that I ate. It just does something.
Yeah, it just takes the food, turns it into energy. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. Or stores it for energy. That's why we see that. Hyperfocus on food when eating or completely disconnected. So why don't you talk about what to do with hyperfocus? Because I feel like that's your jam.
Thanks.
Previous recovering hyperfocuser.
I would say, so this is where if you're going over in your head of like, so say you tracked your calories today and then you were like, oh wait, I forgot to add like the 2 tablespoons of butter. Oh wait, I forgot to add this. Oh wait, like we're always thinking about food in advance too, is to take a step back, try and do something else. It's not so much of like, don't keep thinking about it, but it's more so of why am I keep thinking about it? Is it because I'm bored, which can be a lot of it? Is it because I'm stressed about something and this is something I can control? So what's another outlet to get my stress out? Maybe it's going for a walk, listening to a podcast, cleaning, and figure out. And if you're disconnected from it, is setting the intention every time you hit that meal. So now have that meal. What I mean by that is going, okay, I'm going to sit here and we're going to enjoy this food slowly and mindfully. That doesn't mean every time you will. You could start eating and then forget that you had that like intention, but it's that continuous bringing awareness to the situation. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And then realizing like the hyper focus on food, at some point, there's nothing you can do, right? Like you've already tracked your calories perfectly for the week. You've already done as much as you can to finagle your calories from yesterday between like the pulled pork. Did I have 4 ounces or 4.5 ounces, right? Like and I tell my clients who do track calories because they get really focused on like, how do I track like a pulled pork when I'm out like for a football game? And it's like, look, your best estimate is great enough because that's probably how you're going to guess again. So like maybe yesterday you did 4 ounces and then you guys go there next Sunday and you feel like you had 5 ounces. Okay, well, maybe actually on average you had 4.5 both times. And as long as you're consistently guessing in that way, then it's going to be a consistent outcome.
And for the completely disconnected, the way I start this with clients, especially my clients with like who are in recovery from anorexia, is I have them just focus on tangible things like, how does this feel in my mouth? You know, what is the smell of this food? Like really using their senses. You know, how many bites did I take? Just tangible. And then that can turn into mindful and enjoyable, right? But I think of one of my clients that we started her off that way. And then she kind of was like, I feel like I'm just eating to eat. And I'm like, great, let's come back to what we did before. She goes, oh yeah, we did do that before. And it did work. So we focus on like the textures of the food, the smells of the food, you know, how they feel in our mouth. Again, just chewing can be nice. It's a start to connect, especially if you've been so disconnected. Also remembering that your taste buds are in your mouth, right? So we need to taste our food. We need to enjoy our food. We can have a pleasurable experience with it, but making it very simple and tangible in the beginning of reconnecting to your food, and then slowly building the pleasure and the mindfulness in. I mean, all of it is mindfulness, but that truly mindful eating experience. So good.
So then when we talk about eating with others and comparing, my thoughts on this. So this one I had to learn too, is because as you strength train and get stronger, your hunger is going to be more elevated, right? And that's a good thing. So, but you can't compare what you're eating compared to your friend who like maybe does yoga once a month, right? But that's a reality, is because like say you and I go out to eat and say you do yoga once a month and I strength train 3 times a week, right? And if you're having like half a salad and you're like, oh my God, I'm so full. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh, I only had half of my ribeye and
I'm gonna eat that too.
I'm still hungry. Yeah. It's not so much that you have to be careful what story you're telling yourself. And also this is where you're on the last one where you're talking about mindfulness is how am I still hungry? Because if I am, then it's okay for me to eat. Like we have 2 different bodies, 2 different life situations, 2 different expectations of our fitness and our strength and all this.
Even what you ate before you came. Maybe she had a meal 2 hours ago.
Yes. And then maybe you didn't. Maybe you had a late lunch or like an early lunch because you're hungry and you had a meeting. And so now you're really hungry. You have to think of yourself as the individual. And this is where that comparison comes in. And I think this is why part of the reason we don't like the like what I eat in a day kind of articles that you'll see is because that chick is not telling you what like everything behind the scenes. I mean, hopefully they are being honest, but even then she's still in a different body than you are.
Right. Right. And age and everything.
Correct.
And let's just face it, when say you're trying to eat like your friend, you're just going to get a to-go box and go home. And when you're away from your friend, eat the fucking rest of it.
Then you're so guilty about that.
Right. I'm like, I'm still eating. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right.
Like, and my friends, they'll make comments like, oh, but I think of like a couple we hang out with, they always split food. And they might get something more indulgent, but they always split it.
Yeah.
But it works for them. I know you're giving me a face right now.
Because I could never split food with Michael.
Well, they get 2 things that they
okay. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. And like Mark and I did that where we went out to eat with them. We got a flatbread between the 4 of us. And then he and I was like, well, we're here and they have good burgers. So let's split a burger because I'm not necessarily wanting a whole meal. But again, the comparison to friends, whether it's you're eating more than them or you're trying, if they're eating less than you or vice versa, like we don't know what they ate in that day, what they've done with their lives. So stop comparing to them. If you're hungry later at night and it doesn't upset your stomach, it is okay for you to eat food.
Yes.
Right? Now, obviously we don't want to eat something that is going to cause us like heartburn. Right. So maybe something that's not as irritating on the stomach lining, like a processed food. But like I said, I have a whole thing of Ninja Creamy every night. It takes me probably like 20 minutes to finish. Do you guys, when you eat something cold, do you cough?
I do. I have no idea.
I do. I'm always like, I'm having coughing attacks. It is. It's just irritation of my esophagus. Clean Plate Club kind of goes back to that example. Let's just, I'm going to group some of these. So being connected, Clean Plate Club, eating because it's in front of you, eating out of social pressure, and eating during certain situations. It really comes back to what does my body want right now? Physically. And a great way to understand that is if this was a piece of chicken, would I still want it? Because oftentimes, whether it is, the Clean Plate Club could be like a full meal, like a very hearty nutrition, or not hearty, but like a nutrient dense meal. But we've got to think physically, if I was to eat a piece of chicken, would I still want this thing? So I think of if the food was in front of you, right? If it was a chicken breast, would you eat it because it's in front of you? If it was, you wanted something because you did something good, would you eat a chicken breast? Probably not, right? If you are in a situation like if Santisi Brothers had chicken breasts on the buffet, would I probably want them? Probably not, right? So that's physically. And then number 2 physically is, how am I going to feel after these next few bites? I'm already full right now. So again, Clean Plate Club, because it's in front of you, eating out of social pressure, giving yourself a reward, and always eating certain situations. We have to come back to our physical need. Because remember, guys, you were born with that skill to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full.
That's so interesting that you say that, because that is emphasized so much in like with my lactation consultant that came, and then we did a newborn class last week, and they talked about that too, of like when your baby, they'll give you signals that they're full. And that's kind of, I don't have this baby outside of my belly yet, but one of the things they say is, yes, you need to feed them when they're a newborn, essentially every 2 to 3 hours, but they'll let you know how much, and you need to listen to that. And just because like, if they don't take that full ounce or 2 ounces or whatever it is, they just don't worry about it. Like, let it go. But what some parents will do is freak out about it because they're so concerned, like, oh my gosh, they didn't take the full 2 ounces. And it's like, they're full. They told you that. Right. There's signals, there's cues. We don't need to worry about it. Like, if anything, if they're hungry again sooner, like maybe they're hungry at an hour and a half, then we'll give them the rest. Right. Or like if they're waking up. So, and that's another thing too, is sometimes babies are waking up more in the night because they're hungry, but because we've been told, oh, they need X amount every time structure. So some moms are doing that, and then their babies aren't sleeping through the night and they're wondering why. And it's literally because like they're not getting enough food.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's true. So we have to come back to like physically the body, what does it need? And then mentally ask yourself, like, do I even like this food? Right?
Yeah.
If it's just in front of you, like I talk about sustainable eating, the one that we want to not have as much is not pleasurable and not nourishing. You know, I mean, obviously the carrot with the ranch was, I guess, nourishing, but did I need it? No. Was it like mind blowing? No. I could have been without it. So mentally, you know, what am I getting out of eating this food? Do I even like this food? And is there another way that I can reward myself without food? Okay. And then for the clean eating and clean eating during the week, rewarding on the weekend, or binge versus restrict, we kind of already touched on this. Because you're so used to this cycle, obviously we need to, instead of course correcting and overcorrecting, to restrict, clean, why don't we, again, from a sustainable eating, which I will link our new landing page for that free resource, we are going to eat foods that are both pleasurable and nourishing to us, and eat foods that are only pleasurable, and figure out a portion that serves us. And sometimes that's going to be like your client with the chocolate cake, a third of a slice, a half of a slice, right? And maybe it's just maybe we stop at half of a slice, or like you talked about the chocolates.
Well, and I told her with the cake client, I was like, look, if you're not comfortable, say, oh no, I'm okay. Take the piece, have a bite, set it down, go do something else.
Yep.
Because how many times do you go to a party and there's so much like leftover food on plates and whatnot? And if someone, like, say I did that and you're like, Amanda, you didn't eat your cake, be like, oh, I totally forgot about it. Oh, that's all right. Like it becomes more of a reflection on the person that's bombarding you about it, as opposed to you and your choices. So have a bite. If you like it, then great. Maybe we have half of it. Or if you do like the cake, maybe just say, oh, just give me a smaller piece. Like 9 times out of 10 women go, oh, I totally understand. Yes, let's do a smaller piece, because they're in that diet culture too. You're just in a different way because you have more awareness about what your wants and needs are.
Absolutely. So good. So that is your food rules. And Amanda and I just decided that we're going to make this a 2-part podcast. So you have to listen to our next podcast on the exercise rules, what they are and how to combat them. But for this episode, we are going to link below our sustainable eating landing page. And then on the next episode, we'll have some other really awesome resources for you to figure out how to put all of this together. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Yeah, because we have to stay around it. We're going to be hopefully paying for our podcast studio soon, so we need to stay within an hour.
We also talked about our
fucking mouths. Yeah. or on our past lives. Yeah. We're going to be like, you guys are only on episode 1 and we're 3 hours in. You owe us $10,000 because they're so expensive. So for that reason, we're just going to end it here.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, like I said, we're going to drop the second part to this episode in our next, when is this going to drop?
This one will come 10/14. The next one will come 10/17.
Perfect. So 10/14, you're going to get this one. 10/17, listen for the next one. It'll all come together. But until then, give us a follow if you have not followed this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you have not already, please rate and review. And then give us a follow on Instagram at Mindset and Matter Coaching and fitbyamanda.az. And if you have any questions for us, please feel free to email us. We want to hear your stories, themindsetandmatter@gmail.com. We want to hear your aura stories. So don't forget, that's the most important thing other than this last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Bye.
Goodbye.